Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the scheduled and the tribal areas, right? This is the topic on which we have been discussing right now. All right. And with this particular series of the scheduled and the tribal areas, these all are the topics that we had scheduled for the discussion, like starting with the introduction part, thereafter the scheduled areas in India and overview of it, thereafter the criteria for the identification of scheduled areas, then the constitutional provisions and the governance, then concerns that are related to the scheduled areas, then the administration of the scheduled areas, then the scheduled tribes, then the general concerns of the tribal community, then addressing the challenges, then significance of the indigenous communities, then problems are being faced by the tribal groups, thereafter the conclusion, and then the administration of the tribal areas. Okay, so these are the topics that we had scheduled for the discussion. If we talk about the topic that we have covered so far, so basically we have done with the introduction part. We have done with the scheduled areas in India and overview of it. We have done with the criteria for the identification of scheduled areas. We have done with the constitutional provisions and the governance. We have done with the concerns that are related to the scheduled areas. Okay, we have done with the administration of the scheduled areas. We have done with the scheduled tribes. And the topic on which we have been discussing right now, this is the general concerns of the tribal community. The topics that we are left with, these are addressing the challenges, significance of the indigenous communities, problems being faced by the tribal groups, conclusion, administration of tribal areas. Okay, so this is the picture that we have created so far altogether. Basically, in this lecture, we will start from where we have left in the previous one. Okay, in the previous lecture, basically we had discussing the dwindling population, or you can say the decreasing population of the tribal community. Okay, in this basically we have discussed the first thing that is regarded as a health issue. Okay, we have discussed the high infant mortality rates. Okay, and basically in this I have told you the infantility mortality rates are basically the number of childs that have been died, okay, due to the defined cause, and all of them are below the age of 1. Okay, and basically we have seen the indigenous communities often face the high mortality rates, infant mortality rates, you can say, okay, because of the lacking access to the healthcare facilities, poor maternal health, and the inadequate nutrition. Okay, and then we had discussed that traditional birth practices without the medical support can also contribute to this issue. All right. Thereafter, we had discussed the diseases and the epidemics. Okay, like the indigenous population are particularly vulnerable to the diseases and epidemics. In the previous lecture, we had taken the example of USA. Okay, and due to the lack of immunization and healthcare infrastructure, this situation could be exacerbated also. For instance, like we had the example of the tuberculosis and the malaria that having the high prevalence rates in the tribal. Okay, in the previous example of the America, when I was telling you, okay, I had mentioned the one tribe name there. That was the one of the major groups of the tribal community that was living in the USA since the centuries. What was the name of that thing? This question will show your attention in the class and even your revision in the class. To answer this question, 30 seconds you guys will have. Okay, think and answer correctly. Time starts now. Just think about it. 10 seconds have been passed off, last 20 are remaining. Last 10 seconds. All right, the time's up. So the correct answer of this is the Aztecs. Aztecas was one of the major tribal group that were originally inhabited the country of USA. All right. And these were basically came into a disease with the Europeans when they had to interact with them. What was that disease? Another question. What was that disease? 30 seconds you will have. Time starts now. Just think about it. 10 seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. Okay, last 10 seconds are there. All right, the time's up. So that disease was chikungunya, also known as chicha. Okay. Low life expectancy we have discussed, and this is quite obvious because of the overall life expectancy is lower when we compare to general population, owing to the poor healthcare that these people have, malnutrition, and higher incidence of disease. So the health issue was a topic that we have discussed. I hope that you have revised the previous lecture in the well enough manner, because here whatsoever I have told you, that is just a summary, or you can say just an overview of the things that we had discussed in the previous lecture. These are not the actual lecture. Okay, so kindly go back and revise the things in the proper manner before you go forward. Okay, so that was the thing. Let's move forward. The second thing that we are going to see here is the migration. That is also the general issue that is being attributed to the tribal community. What is the meaning of migration? When we talk about the migration, then what is the meaning of this? To answer this, again, I will give you 30 seconds. Time starts. What is the meaning of migration? What do you understand by the migration? Okay. Ten seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. Just think faster. These are the most basic question. All right. These are not so much hard. Last 10 seconds are there. The time is going to be up. The time's up. So basically the migration stands out for the activity of moving from one place to another. Again, I'm repeating, migration is the term that we use for the activity of moving from one place to another. That is what we call as an migration. Got it? The migration also having the two phases, immigration and emigration. Again, I'm repeating, immigration and emigration. All right. What is the meaning of immigration? What is the meaning of emigration? To answer this question, you will have the 30 seconds to think and answer. Then I will give you the answer. All right. The time is going to be start now. Ten seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. Last 10 seconds are there. The time is going to be up. The time's up. The correct answer is emigration is when the person that is living in the place is going out from that place. Okay. It means suppose if you are living in the city A, then you moved out from city A, that will be called an emigration. Immigration is different. Immigration means when the person who was living in different city now coming to that city. That is what we call as an emigration. Sorry, immigration. For example, if you are living in city B and then you move to this city. So emigration stands out for the exit. Immigration stands out for the in. All right. So that is the thing. That is a thing of migration. There are two parts, immigration and emigration. Okay. If we talk about this now, just forget the tribal communities that we're talking about. I'm not saying that sense. Basically, I'm saying for a meanwhile, just forget that we are talking about the tribal communities. Just tell me what is the major cause for the migration in India. Again, I'm repeating. What is the major cause of migration in India? To answer this question, again, you guys will have 30 seconds to think and answer. Time starts now. Just think about it. Okay, last 20 seconds are there. 10 seconds have been passed. Okay, last 10 seconds are there. Alright, the time's up. The correct answer is marriage. Okay, marriage is the correct answer. Marriage is the main cause of migration. Alright, so now if we talk about the migration, so we have discussed several facts like what do you mean by the emigration, what do you mean by the immigration, what is the major cause of migration. Why marriage we call it? Because oftenly in India, not only in India, in the culture of worldwide, basically we have the custom like whenever a man and a girl gets married, when a boy and girl get married and becomes the man and woman, so generally the woman leave their home and move to the home of the husband. Okay, so that is what we call as a cause of migration. Sorry. Now, if we talk about the migration in respect of the tribal community, the first is the economic migration. First is the economic migration. So the younger members of the indigenous communities or the Adivasi communities, okay, they often migrate to the urban areas in search of better employment opportunities. Like as I have told you, basically, since the starting, the tribals are living with the forest. Okay, they are being inhabited by the forest, and all of their survival of their livelihood is totally dependent upon the forest in which they are living. That is what I have told. But that is also having some implications. Like in ancient time, in medieval times, even in the early phases of the modern history times, basically the things were different. Basically, the things were different, but now the things are different. Not only the mainstream is the one that has been on the continuous evolution. Even the schedule and the tribals also the ones who have been in the continuous evolution. Okay. So nowadays, if we look at them, then we will find that majority of them is not so much attached to the primitive survival conditions, like doing the subsistence farming, living in the huts and all. No. Basically, they are also trying to get indulged in the mainstream, also trying to get modernized. All right. For this, they require some employment opportunities other than the traditional employments they have. Okay. So basically, in search of this, the younger members of the indigenous committees, they got a choice. That choice is moving to the urban areas. Why? Because if we talk about the tribal areas, they are generally the remote or the rural areas. Generally the remote and the rural areas, and they are not so much capable to providing the adequate means of employment to all of them. All right, even these areas are backward, like already we had discussed. The tribal areas, the scheduled areas are oftenly found backward in comparison with the other normal areas. Okay, so because of this, the only choice they are left with is to move to the urban areas. Why? Because urban areas are somewhat modern areas, and even they having the better employment opportunities for them. Okay, like if the tribal person that has been moved to the urban area, he is not even educated a lot, then even he will have the employment chances, like he could do a labor job. Okay, he could be a helper, he could be other kind of things like he could do. All right. So when we compare about the income that he will get from these times, all right, this income will even better than the condition of him when he was living in the forest. All right. And this migration basically leads to the reduction in the population of the traditional areas. For example, if we take the example of two areas, area A and area B. Let's assume area A is the scheduled area or the tribal area. Okay, area A is the scheduled or the tribal area, while the area B is the medieval area, or you can say the urban area. Okay. So if the area B is the urban area, what is implies? It implies that the area B would be the mainstream or the general area. Okay. But if we considering area A as a scheduled and tribal area, that will be a traditional place or the primitive place of residence for the tribals. So now just assume the condition. The person is basically migrated from area A to area B as the normal migration from the scheduled area towards the urban area, right? As a normal thing. Okay. So what it implies here? What it implies here? It implies the population of area B would grow. The population of area A would reduce. How? Just take an example from your most basic thing. Like assume yourself in the classroom. You are living in the classroom. Okay. This classroom having the two sections, section A and section B. All right. Section A is having the 40 students. Section B is having the 40 students. Okay. The capacity of the class is to accommodate the 60 students. So how much seats are left? 20 seats are left. Okay. Then suddenly you have got a chance, or you can say section A and section B both have got a chance. Like the students could move to each other. Section A students could move to the section B, section B students could move to the section A. Okay, then what happened? Section A students move to the section B and no section B students move to the section B. Okay, so let's assume 20 students from section A move to the section B. How many students the section B had? 40. 20 more will be there. How much it will become? 60. All right. Then what will be the condition? Section B would be optimized. The population has been increased. The number of students has been increased by the number of 60. Sorry, by the number of 20. Okay. But on the other hand, the section A that had the students count of 40, now it would be only 20. Why? Because 20 have been moved out. So the strength of section A reduced, the strength of section B, you can say, enhanced. Similar kind of condition is there. For example, you can say the section B, the area B that was an urban area having the population of 10 lakh, for example. Okay. The area A having the population of 2 lakhs. Then basically the population of area A, the 1 lakh people move from A to B. Then what happened? Area B now will have the population of 11 lakh, has been raised by 1 lakh, while the population A will now having the strength of 1 lakh got decreased or minus by 1 lakh. Okay, that would be a thing. And that is what we call as an reduce in the traditional areas population. Okay, and it is also having the effect of the urban areas. Why? Because it is not like this. Only the traditional areas are getting the problem. Why? Because their population is reducing. Even the urban area where the population is moving, that is also growing the problem. And how this could be done? Because of the limited number of resources, because of the limitation of the resources. If we talk about it in the proper sense, now let's talk about it. For example, just go back to the classroom. Section A, section B both had the 40 students count. Maximum capacity is only 60 students. Okay, it means the chairs, the tables, the fans and all that had the resources, and these resources having the limitation to accommodate only the 60 students. So when the 20 students from section A moved to the section B, section B reached its maximum limit of 60 students because 40 already it had and 20 added more. Got it? But suddenly what happened? 10 more students from section A moved to the section B. Then what would happen? The section B would be under pressure. Why? Because it is not capable to handle the strength of the students more than the 60. it could only handle the strength up to the 60, and now the strength would be 70 if we add those 10 off. Similarly, area A and area B having the conditions. Like the area A people, if they moving to the area B, that is an urban area, so that urban area also having the limited resources, that do not having the limited resources. The land, the amenities, okay, and other kind of things, these are limited. All right. So that is not only the concern that we should see from the point of view of tribals, but this is also the concern that we also see from the point of view of normal people. Okay, because they are also going to be affected. And this also affects the transmission of cultural practices and knowledge. Like it means that the culture that the tribals are basically facing in these areas, okay, that culture would be transferred to the urban areas right now. Okay, even the culture that was facing in the urban areas, that would be transmitted to the younger members. Okay, and when these younger members will go back to their villages, will go back to the native places they belong, so they will also carry this thing, this culture. Even the knowledge that the tribals had, that would be transmitted to the urban areas, and the knowledge that would be given to these younger members of the community, that would be go back to the scheduled areas. Because when the people will move here and there, then that would be a thing. And remember, this kind of cultural practice and knowledge transmission is generally a one-sided. How we can say this is generally a one-sided? Because first of all, the tribals are allowed to move out from their areas to the urban areas. They could move. But the urban area people, the mainstream people, not generally allowed to move to the scheduled areas. Even if we take it back to the fundamental rights, like in the fundamental rights, when we were discussing about the Article 19. Okay, Article 19 having the 6 kind of freedom, right? Now the question is, what is the 6 kind of freedoms promised under Article 19? 30 seconds you guys will have to think and answer. Time starts now. Ten seconds have been passed off. Last 20 are remaining. Last 10 seconds. The time is going to be up. The time's up. The correct answer is, first is freedom of speech and expression. Second is freedom of association. Third is freedom of assembly. Fourth is freedom of movement. Fifth is freedom of residence. And sixth is freedom of profession. Okay, these are the 6 freedoms that are promised under the Article 19. All right. Freedom of speech and expression says that you could speak and express any thought. Okay, but exceptions are there. Okay. Thereafter, freedom of assembly is there. It means that people are allowed to gather without arms and ammunition. Freedom of association is there. It means that if the association is formed for some general purpose, then it could be. Thereafter, freedom of movement. It means you could easily move to any part of the country. Freedom of residence means if you want to reside at some place, you could easily reside. Third is freedom of profession. If you want to choose some profession, you could choose. Okay. Out of these 6 things, the 2 freedom that will matter here, this is the freedom of movement and the freedom of residence. Like freedom of movement says, Indian could move anywhere in the country freely. Freedom of residence says an Indian could reside anywhere in the country freely. But these are the exceptions. Why? Because you could not move to the scheduled and the tribal areas that had been notified by the official gazette of the country. Okay, there are some restrictions. Secondly, you could not reside in the scheduled and tribal areas by using a freedom of residence. All right. So because of this, now you can compare Like area A people that are the tribal areas, these are oftenly allowed to move from their places to the other places. It means they could easily move from area A to area B. But the area B people, the normal or the mainstream people, they are not allowed to move from area B to area A. Okay? Because the area is a scheduled and tribal areas that having some restrictions. Okay? This is the thing. After this, if we talk about the urbanization, so we can say more individuals who move to the urban centers. Okay, these are considered as a young members. These are the young members. Why? Because the young member is the one who will still look for the better employment opportunities. The aged or the older people, they have lived their life. They do not have that much of aspiration. Okay. So when more individuals move to the urban centers and the aging population of the tribal areas left behind in the rural areas struggle to maintain the community's cultural and social structures, that is also a problem. Why? Because as I have told you, we want them to get indulged in the mainstream, but also want them to keep care of their cultural heritage. All right. And the aging population that left behind, this is not so much capable to do it by their own. Okay. So this is the problem that has been generated because of the migration. All right. So students, basically in this lecture, we have discussed till here. In the next lecture, we will continue from here. Till then, just revise the facts and figures that all we have discussed in this lecture. Be ready for the next lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture and thank you.